Yeah, so thank you very much for you guys for joining, and we're going to start by a slide presentation about Ikare. Is going to take 1-2 minutes maximum, and then I give it to Krister about the presentation, but regarding his Rapamycin. Okay, so let's start. So let's give a slide presentation, and then we'll move. So Ikare is a startup that is combining AI and coaching for longevity to help people to live longer, hopefully by providing services such as a doctor and, let's say, so you'll have basically a doctor service, then a coach that will help you to have kind of the perfect routine, longevity routine regarding your health and emotional health, physical health, etc., etc., and a step-by-step program on a 6 months basis, and then every 6 months you'll be able to improve your KPIs regarding your health. Everything is included in terms of benefits. In terms of you start with a couple of questionnaire, then you move from that to blood work, and then coaching with advice from the doctor, and then you have a month to month checkup with and follow up with the coach. Yeah, so it's there's already a couple of customers that are in the process, and that's doing great. So feel free to ping on the Ikare LinkedIn, Ikare whatever profile, or me, and that's basically it. And yeah, so I will share to Krister the space. So if you want to start presenting, that's all for now. Let me just stop sharing, and that's for you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great initiative, Ikare, around this workshop. And I looked at the last workshop with Paula. I think she is also with us today. She talked about protein restriction. Really great session. That session will be published to Ikare's YouTube channel, so I can highly recommend watching that workshop. But yeah, today we are going to have a crash course around rapamycin, its longevity potential, why some people have decided to take rapamycin, and why other people have decided to not take it. I will also share my own experiences with rapamycin, both the good ones and the not so good ones. And yeah, let's see what other things we will cover also through the questions that we take after this workshop. A little bit about me. I'm founder of the Rapamycin Longevity Lab. It's a lab initiative where we're going to take mTOR inhibitors such as rapamycin to the next level. And this we are going to do by combining mTOR inhibitors with the other longevity interventions, and by that getting a much more powerful longevity effect. I'm also a founder of the Rapamycin Longevity Series podcast, where I interview researchers and physicians and other experts around mTOR inhibitors and rapamycin. And recently, I also founded the longevity intervention database, where we have the goal to gather lots of longevity intervention data on multiple species in one place. And currently we have data on all the data on the ITP in mice, but also the ITP in worms, which is very unique. But much more data will come in the future. So yeah, step by step forward. Before we start this presentation, I think it's important to highlight this disclaimer. I'm not a medical doctor, and everything in this presentation is not medical advice. It's only for educational purposes only. And all the things you do based on this presentation is at your own risk. So always consult a professional physician when you start experimenting with things around your health or longevity, because things can go wrong. So yeah, take it seriously. This image, I think it's quite good starting point. It shows in a big picture what we are going to talk about. And roughly you can say that there exist two biological processes. Anabolic processes, which is about growth and development. And then you have catabolic processes, which is the opposite side of the coin. And that type of processes is about breakdown and cleanup. And if we look at many of the longevity interventions that exist today, those tend to lean towards the catabolic processes, such as calorie restriction, protein restriction, rapamycin. We have also exercise is a catabolic process. So when you do the exercise, that is a catabolic process. You break down the muscle, but when you eat and recover, then you activate the anabolic processes. And here there are a little bit two camps often that comes up. One camp which advocates more for anabolic processes, and another camp that advocates a little bit more about on the catabolic processes. But in most cases, I think from a personal view is that the truth is probably something in the middle, and not overexpression of either anabolic or catabolic processes. Because if you stimulate too much anabolic processes, then it has a tendency to accelerate the aging and different age-related diseases. And the same thing goes if you overexpress catabolic processes. That can lead to also accelerated aging and catabolic diseases. So it's about finding a balance around these two. And that balance is not something that is constant because it fluctuates depending on the situation and also the specific person. And one example is, for example, let's say that you broke your leg and you can go to the hospital for a surgery. Then it's not good after that to stimulate catabolic processes like practicing calorie restriction and other things, because that will slow down the healing process. The same thing goes with if you get a wound or something like that. And it's better to get more of the anabolic processes. So it depends a little bit on the situation, what is good for you. And regarding the camps, if we go to the next image here, this is a model that I created last year because I felt that many discussion that people had between the different camps are due to that the people have different types of goals. One person may have a goal to optimize reproduction. Another person may have a goal to optimize performance, athletic performance. And a third one may try to optimize a really long life. And depending on what type of goal you have, the different longevity protocols differ. And most likely, I think also what type of biomarker levels that are optimized will also differ. So I think this can be a quite good thing to have in mind when you see different discussions around different camps, and then ask, what is your longevity goal? Is it the same goal as you have? And if it's different, then it's much easier to understand if the longevity protocol that the other person has, why the arguments differ. So yeah, it can be good to look at that. As I mentioned before, many of the longevity intervention tend to lean towards the catabolic processes. And in this image, we see it that different dietary restriction interventions, such as calorie restriction, fasting, protein restriction, plant-based diet, and things like that, they inhibit different anabolic processes like IGF-1 and insulin, and also activate catabolic processes, which is called AMPK. And those part has connections also with something which is called mTOR inhibition. And the result of that is that when we inhibit the mTOR, that will lead to inhibition of the anabolic processes and activation of catabolic processes. And then we have also other interventions, as I mentioned, exercise. We have sauna, cold exposure, spicy food, and here we also have supplements and some types of pharmaceutical drugs. And those have a hormetic effect on the organism. It stresses the organism in different ways, and it can, by that, inhibit mTOR. The third thing we have here is the thing we are going to talk about today, and it's this box here. Here we have two types of pharmaceutical drugs. We have rapamycin, and we have also something which is called rapalogs. Rapalogs is you can see it as very similar chemical structure as rapamycin, and both inhibit mTOR. If we look at yeah, what is mTOR and how it was discovered? It was in 1972 that rapamycin was discovered in soil samples from Easter Island, also called Rapa Nui. And around 1972 and 1980, there were researcher called Søren Segal who discovered that rapamycin had anti-cancer properties, but also antifungal and immunosuppressant properties. Around 10 years after that, they discovered what rapamycin targeted, and rapamycin targets mTOR, and mTOR stands for mechanistic target of rapamycin. This was something that was discovered by researchers, I think, yeah, it was David Sabatini and also Michael Hall who did those discoveries. A little bit before the 2000, rapamycin was FDA approved as immune suppressant drug for preventing organ transplant reaction, because when you get the organ transplant, then the immune system doesn't recognize this organ and tries to push that organ away. So it creates a quite strong immune reaction. So rapamycin is a way to calm down the immune system so that it doesn't react the organ. In 2009 and forward, we have different rapalogs like everolimus. They got FDA approved for treatment of different cancers. And in 2006, important discovery was made by Matt Cabellan and Brian Kennedy. That was the first study in yeast, which showed that rapamycin led to lifespan extension. After that, different labs also discovered lifespan extension in worms and flies. And in 2009, it was a big milestone in the longevity field, because there exists an intervention testing program, ITP, who discovered for the first time in mice that rapamycin extended mice lifespan in a quite big way. The unique thing here was also that it worked if the treatment was started late in life, because previously researchers had thought that you need to start early in life a longevity intervention to have a real big effect. But this was the first time that intervention that was started late in life, I think equivalent to a 60-year-old person. And it led to around, I think it was something like 10 years extra in lifespan extension. Yes, here we see different lifespan data in multiple species. We have the yeast, hydra, roundworm, fruit fly, mice. The new thing that has come up quite recently is data on marmoset monkeys. This is preliminary data, so it's not published yet, but it was revealed by Adam Salmon on a conference recently, and it showed median lifespan extension of around 15%, which is quite good. And we have also some interesting data on cats and dogs, which show improvement in health span when it comes to specific heart problems. And we have also some data on mTOR inhibitors, Rapamycin, on humans, which show improvement in the immune system. So that is also interesting data. Why does the mTOR inhibition work? There are quite many different theories around this. One theory is that if we look at the young animals, but also we can see this in humans, then we have a cycle through the day where when we eat, then we activate the anabolic processes. And when we don't eat, then we fast. And in those cases, we activate the catabolic processes. And then we go up again, we eat, and then back again to the catabolic processes. And the longest type of fast is, in most cases, the time when we sleep. The problem is when we get older, then the anabolic or mTOR has a tendency to get dysregulated and overexpressed. And research data in mice and rats showed that the fasting which happens doesn't create a powerful catabolic activation anymore. So that way mTOR and anabolic processes are always activated. And that way we get also more problems because we need to have the fluctuation between the catabolic and anabolic processes. So here researchers such as John Manick thinks that rapamycin and other mTOR inhibitors can be a solution to get the balance more in place. So more research is looking at this, but step by step we are moving forward. Here we have some people who are taking rapamycin. We have people like Peter Attia, I think one big researcher is rapamycin researcher is Matt Cabellan. I can highly recommend to check him out. We have also one longevity physician here, Syed Salah, who is conducting one of the biggest rapamycin trials that has been done. And that result will be published quite soon. We have also some females here who are taking rapamycin. Killen is one longevity physician that I can also recommend to check her channels out. For a full list, you can go into my X account, and there I try also to keep this list up to date. There has been a survey done around what doses the longevity community is taking, and in most cases, the average dose in the longevity community is around 6 milligrams once weekly. Then there are people who don't take rapamycin, and one reason for that is that they don't know what rapamycin is. And another reason is that people are afraid that it can suppress the immune system. But here it's important to take the dose protocol in consideration, because the dose protocol that has shown decrease in immune system is based on the organ transplant patients. And that dose is from 1 to 5 milligrams daily. But the longevity community takes around 5 to 8 milligrams once weekly. So it's like saying that water is always good, but that's not true, because if you take too high dose of water, then you can get serious side effects, and you can even die from it. So that logic you can apply to almost everything in life. One other thing is that why people don't take it is because it's not FDA approved for longevity. There is also lack of human data in clinical trials, but this is not unique for just rapamycin. This is something which most longevity interventions are struggling with. One other reason is that we don't know the long-term potential side effects, but we have data on organ transplant patients who has taken very high doses, and that data we have, I think it's probably more than 2 decades back. And if it will have had very serious side effects, then FDA would have withdrawn the FDA approval. Some people say because we don't have good biomarkers to see if it works in humans or not, then it's hard to say if it will work or not. So here we need better measurements to know if it works. And other people feel that they are too young to start taking rapamycin. I see that the time goes a little bit fast here, but I will try to speed up a little bit. My own journey, it started in 2012 when I got shocked when I weighed myself. I weighed around 85 kilos, which is quite much for me. So that triggered my journey to take control of my health. And in 2006, after searching for different ways of taking control of my health, I found the physician Michael Mosley and intermittent fasting, and started practicing it with good results. This led that I wrote 2 books about fasting. The first one is about the short-term fasting, and the other one is about long-term fasting. The interesting thing here was that when I was writing the last book about long-term fasting, then I saw that there are lots of different interventions that mimic fasting and calorie restrictions in different ways. And rapamycin was one of the most promising interventions that I found. And the more I read and talked to people, I got more and more interested in the topic. And last year in January, I decided to start taking rapamycin. So why did I start take rapamycin? One of my goals is to live a radically long and a healthy life. Rapamycin is not the solution for a radical life extension. I think that is good to point out. Some People estimate that it may give, let's say, 5 to 15 extra years, but that is totally speculation if it will give that to humans. I use basic lifestyle interventions that like exercise, diet, sleep, and other things. And I want to also add other different interventions to those basic lifestyle interventions to try to slow down the rate of aging. And I think rapamycin may be a very good way for me to do that. And the goal for that is that when the big breakthroughs comes around the radical life extension, then I can start using those interventions instead. Risk for age-related diseases increases exponentially when age, and it's around when we get to around 40, 50, when that starts to go up, and it goes up quite fast. So I started when I was 46. I don't have the luxury of time to wait for perfect research data around rapamycin. If I will wait, then I will probably be dead when that data comes. The potential benefits after when I have read into the topic and discussed with different people who are taking it and physicians and things like that, I have come to the conclusion that the benefits outweigh the risk. I will talk a little bit more about that. And I feel also a big frustration that very little time is put to rapamycin research because the patent is not longer valid. So I feel as a philanthropic person that I need to try to do something in the field. That's why I also have started the Rapamycin Longevity Lab and a podcast and things like that. How I started, as I mentioned, I started to read a lot of in the topic and discuss with people. One site that I can recommend to look up is Rapamycin News. Really good place with a discussion forum and lots of good information. I found also a physician who I work with, because this is not something you want to do by yourself. It's important to know that this is not FDA approved for longevity, and yeah, and the physician prescribes it off-label. I think it was also important for me to get the prescription and not to get like rapamycin online from a strange site or something like that, because then you don't know the quality and things like that. So I don't take that path. I took a blood test before and after to see how things developed. Also important things, because here people can get problems in lipids and glucose levels and things like that. I started also with low dose, 1 milligrams once weekly, and slowly increased the dose to 6 milligrams. I avoided enhancers like grapefruit juice to increase the effective dose. Some people use enhancers, but I think that is more for advanced users, and yeah, in most cases, physicians don't recommend to use it. So yeah, it's already quite experimental to take rapamycin, so it's better to avoid it. It's my personal. I take also breaks if I get sick, need recovery from an injury, or if I go to vacation to a foreign country. So, yeah. Noticeable effects that I have felt is improved dental health. That is real nice effect. My inflammation markers has gone to the lowest levels that I have ever experienced. Easier weight loss. I got the eyelid wart that's almost gone, a stubborn one, and mild common cold symptoms. Some side effects is that I got slight increase in levels of lipids and also a slight decrease in insulin sensitivity. The most common side effect when you start taking rapamycin is mild mouth sores. I got that 3 times. And some small acne pimples also. And in the beginning, I got the irritation in my ears and eyes. I don't know if it was rapamycin or pollen or something like that, but that was something I experienced, but don't experience anymore. So from my perspective, should I take it or not? I will say that it still is guesswork. But when I look at the benefits and compared to the risk, I have come to the conclusion that I will continue take rapamycin, but I'm humble around that it can be the wrong decision, and I'm open for discussions and also research data that will prove that my risk and benefit calculation is wrong. Yes, the last slide here is here you have the podcast, some of the podcast episodes. You can find them on YouTube. I have also in the Rapamycin Longevity Lab started a project to find even better mTOR inhibitors than rapamycin. So that is something we are going to do. Yes, I think that was all for me. Questions? Yeah, Ari?
Thank you very much, Krister, for this great presentation, and it was very, very interesting to hear everything you said today. And I'm very glad to meet you, because I follow you on LinkedIn, so I'm very glad to meet you finally live. Thanks, Gabriel and Max, for this webinar. Just a question: as you are one of the most well-informed man on rapamycin and everything that is done on it, do you follow rapamycin on anti-aging cream for topical use? Because I'm convinced that using a real anti-aging cream on our skin can have a great systemic effect on other organs. Because if you rejuvenate or slow down the aging of the skin, you can then, by a domino effect, can hope to slow down the aging of the other organs. So do you have data on the use of rapamycin anti-aging cream?
Mm-hmm. That's a very, very interesting question. I'm currently not using rapamycin cream, and I can just give a little bit background for other people here. There exists FDA-approved rapamycin cream, which has some interesting data for anti-wrinkle effects and better skin improvements. But I haven't seen any data on that the skin cream can also lead to other effects inside the body. But super interesting topic, and something that will definitely need to be researched on. So yeah, good, Ari. Yes, Gabi.
Yes, Krister, great presentation. Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions, but I will just ask one and then eventually step up to the next ones after people have asked their questions. So you have presented a slide with different animals where the rapamycin has been tested. And one of them is monkeys. And what you've shown is that 15%, and you put it, I mean, it wasn't validated or something. Can you elaborate on that study and where it is right now? Is it still ongoing? Why is it uncertain? Because monkeys are very similar to humans, so it's a very interesting proxy to look at.
Yeah, the marmoset monkey, it's much more near humans than mice, for example, as you said. The thing with marmoset monkeys is that they are quite small in size, and I think the lifespan of marmoset is around 10 to not 20 years, but 15 years or something like that. So the data that they have around the medium lifespan, it's like when half of the population has died, so they don't yet have the data for maximum lifespan effect. But they have done lots of different also health span measurements on the monkeys, and have found yeah, interesting effects on I think bone density and things like that. So yeah, that paper I think Adam will publish this year. So I'm really looking forward to it. Paula?
Yes, I thank you for a wonderful presentation. I have three questions.
Yeah.
First one is regarding the skin. Also, do you have perhaps any evidence or anecdotal evidence or some case studies in people who have certain inflammatory skin conditions like psoriasis or atopic dermatitis or something which is very common in taking rapamycin, because it sounds to me like it could be beneficial for reducing the symptoms of such inflammatory conditions. Secondly, did you notice any muscle loss in taking rapamycin in yourself or in others that are taking it? And thirdly, if somebody is based in Europe, how can this person get a physician to be on board with introducing rapamycin? Is this a possibility, or is it just available in the US currently?
Yep. Yeah, three great question, Paula. If we start with the first one, I think there are some anecdotal reports, and if you go to rapamycin.news to the discussion forum there, then you can search on that topic, and I think I have seen some people who have tried it out with yeah, some effects, but I don't know if it's with the cream. I think it's even with the oral rapamycin. So yeah, check that out, and please also reach out to me if you found any interesting thing there. If we look at the second question around muscle loss, that is a very important thing that also people are worried about. When I, for example, started the fasting, and did prolonged fasting, like 5-day fasting and things like that. I also practiced one meal a day for 1 year. That is a really, I stimulated the catabolic processes quite much that way. That led to that I got very skinny. I lost muscle through that. I practice fasting today. I don't practice prolonged fasting, but I practice around 18 hours fasting, and I take on top of that rapamycin. On rapamycin.news, on my profile page, you can find a link to a page where I share all my different biomarkers and measurements on both, for example, max push-ups, muscle percentage, and things like that. And those measurements showed that I haven't lost muscle strength or muscle mass. I have even improved those parts. And this is not only something which is connected to me. There are also other anecdotal evidence on that. And there exist also some clinical trials which will, in humans, which will test if rapamycin may decrease sarcopenia in elderly people. Sarcopenia is muscle loss in elderly. And the thing is that if you remember that the image that mTOR gets dysregulated and overexpressed, the thing is that if that happens, then the theory is that that is one reason why people are losing muscle mass. So by taking rapamycin, you keep the muscle and don't lose it. So that is something really interesting to see those results. And
Wow.
the third question there about finding a physician to work with. Also, now it seems like I'm working at rapamycin.news, but I don't have any connections with them. I just think it's a really great site. On that site, you can find a list of different physicians around the world, also in Europe. If you live in Sweden, you can contact Una Health, which is founded by Johan here in this call. But there are also other longevity physicians in Europe. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Very, very good answers.
There are some questions in the chat. Maybe you can read them. I don't know who posted them. iPhone 2, but they seem to be very pertinent. And
let's see if I can find the chat here. Here we have the chat.
I can read them for you if you want to.
Take one, and I can.
Okay. What is the most promising biomarker for monitoring the effects of rapamycin on aging and longevity? And what are the key mechanisms through which rapamycin exerts its anti-aging effects in human cells and tissues? That's one of them.
Yeah, that is a super great question. One big problem that we have in the longevity field is that we don't have good biomarkers to validate the longevity interventions. That is one big reason why we don't have any interventions FDA approved for longevity today. If we look at, for example, rapamycin, I think from my own perspective, I think the inflammation markers are interesting to look at, the high sensitive CRP levels. I think also other things like the oral health is interesting to look at. The researcher John Manick is looking at improved immune function, like seeing if you get mild common cold effects, and even if you get mild COVID effects and things like that also. So currently we don't have any good biomarkers for seeing if it works or not. And to the second part, what is the main mechanism for why mTOR inhibitors work? As I mentioned, one theory is that it may be one part of that it balances the overactivation of anabolic processes, which has a tendency to happen later in life. But there are other theories also around this, like we have protein translation that mTOR regulates. And when you inhibit the mTOR, that protein translation goes a little bit slower. And one theory around that is that you get much better types, better quality proteins. That way you, for example, decrease cancer risk and things like that. So there are many different theories about it. Also, if we look at John Manick's research about improved immune function, that can also be one important driver here, because there are some research that show if you, for example, inhibit the immune system so that you have a very bad immune system, then that by itself can accelerate aging in almost every organ that you have in the body. So there are many different theories here. Yes?
I do have another question. You said that one of the positive effects you got was improving the mild common cold symptoms, which means that you are sick less frequently, right?
Yep.
That's surprising, because again, the way I understand it is that rapamycin mildly inhibits the immune system. And it's hard to understand how inhibiting the immune system is going to improve the body reaction to pathogens.
Super great point there, Gabriel. And I can really recommend to listen to this podcast with John Manick, where we go through the research around the potential effect of improvement of the immune function. And currently, the old way of viewing rapamycin, it was that it was an immune suppressant. But the new way of viewing it is that it's more an immune modulator. And that means depending of the dose protocol that is used. So if you take very high doses of rapamycin, then it has the immune suppressant effects. But if you take low doses, intermittent doses, once weekly, for example, then it seems like it has immune improvement effects. That you can also see in many other different areas in life. For example, if you exercise too much or something like that, then your immune system will decrease because you need recovery and things like that. The same thing is that I started with the cold showers, I think it was 5 years ago or something like that. And when I overdid the cold showers, then I got the cold, especially in the beginning. So I think it's important to have the dose protocol in mind. So if you're overdoing catabolic processes, then you are not optimizing the organism. And the same thing goes with if you're overexpressing the anabolic processes, that's the same thing. Then the organism is not in the optimal state. I can really recommend to listen to the interview with John Manek. Lots of super interesting data which she shows both in animals and in humans.
Really fascinating studies, Krister, and topic. Another question is, one of the adverse effects you had, side effect, was that lipids increased, as far as I understood. What lipids exactly? Are you talking about triglycerides, HDL, LDL, all of them?
The thing that increased was LDL and also ApoB. The thing that I'm worried about is the ApoB part, especially because that is not something that I want to keep on high levels.
Yeah.
So, but there are different ways to handle that. I mentioned also the physician Syed Salsala, and one of his experiences as a longevity physician around the rapamycin prescription to his patient is that the higher lipid levels may be caused by weight loss. So if you go down in your weight, then you get higher lipids temporary, but when the weight stabilizes, then the lipids normalizes. So I'm trying to keep a little bit an eye if that theory also works on me.
Okay, fascinating. How did you measure your insulin sensitivity decrease? It was also mentioned in the list of adverse effects.
There exists a biomarker or a metric which is called HOMA IR, or I think it's called.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the biomarkers that you need to have for calculating that is your glucose levels, and then you also need your insulin levels. And then you add those to equation, and then you get the insulin sensitivity marker. It's quite a rough marker, but it's one marker. Then you also can look at your triglycerides. It can also show how your insulin sensitivity looks like.
Okay, one last question in my list is, what do you mean by oral health? You said that your oral health improved. What exactly?
One thing is that I have struggled almost all my life when I was teenager to late in life here with my dental health because I have had bleeding gum, and I have met lots of different dentists and dental hygienists and try to get professional help around this, but no one has been able to help me out. They have cleaned things up. They have given me supplements and everything, but nothing has really worked. And when I started to take rapamycin, the bleeding stopped fully. And that was really fascinating. The other thing is that when I now go to my dentist, now they give me compliment for my dental health. So it's a very, very interesting effect. And because dental health is also super important, because that can drive also different diseases like Alzheimer's and things like that. So if this is an effect of rapamycin, then I just need to keep taking it. There is one interesting trial which is going to be conducted by one researcher called Jonathan Ann, and also together with Matt Cableman. They are going to look at the effects on dental health and rapamycin. So that trial, I think, will start this year, because they have seen improvements around this in mice.
Thanks for asking. All clear for me.
Great.
I think we are good with questions.
Yep.
Yes, I would ask one more question if you
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So first of all, Krister, thank you very much for your great presentation. I'd like to come back to the dosage. What is the current understanding of the optimal dosing and timing regimen for rapamycin to maximize its longevity benefits in humans? And how do these regimens differ across various age groups and health conditions?
Currently, we don't know what the optimal dose for humans are when it comes to rapamycin. But if we look at John Mannix studies on improvement of the immune system, then the 5 milligrams once weekly showed improvements in the immune function. I think those studies have been important base for the longevity community to decide on what dosing protocol to target. Then we also have a physician, Alan Green, who was a pioneer in the rapamycin field, one of the first physicians who started to prescribe rapamycin off-label. And his target dose was around 6 milligrams once weekly. And I think he has had that dose regimen around, is it 6 years or 7 years or something like that. But the important thing here is that I would say that people tolerate rapamycin differently. That is something I think is important to point out here. Because some people can take quite high doses, even higher than 6 milligrams once weekly. But other people get side effects even with low doses. I have heard people who are taking like 1 milligrams once weekly and they cannot tolerate it. And it can be due to that they have some underlying disease or something like that. So I think it's super important here to work with a physician and see, is rapamycin something to have in the personal protocol, or can it interact with other things that the person takes? Because it can be, for example, that the person already does lots of other intervention that inhibits mTOR. Let's say that they protein restrict, calorie restrict, exercise, lots of other things, and then they add rapamycin to it also. Then it can be that they get too catabolic. But I think when I have looked at the data around how to decide the target dose, I think 0.1 milligrams per body weight is something which seems to be the common equation to calculate a very roughly dose.
Yeah. So there are not clear differentiation between age groups or men, women, and health conditions you already mentioned, comorbidity and all that kind of stuff. Of course, influence.
The physician Alan Green has talked quite much about this, and I can also recommend to listen to that podcast I did with him. There he talks about people with APO4E, the special gene that those people probably need to start earlier with the mTOR inhibition thing, because they have already accelerated the aging and the risk for problems. And he also, I think he said that in general, women need to take lower dose than males. And that may be because of the body weight. I think it's quite natural.
Okay, it's body weight dependent. Yeah.
And if we look at the age difference, I think he said something like for every decade, he adds like 2 milligrams higher dose, something like that. But listen to that podcast, and you will get
Thank you very much for the recommendation. Great. Thanks a lot.
Good. All right. Okay, I think we're good. I think we have done enough questions right now. So thank you a lot for the presentation. Thank you. It was very insightful. And thank you all to attend to the speech, and looking forward to the next one. Yes, I think that's all for now. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.